So I want to have a conversation about this young man down in the great state of Florida. He goes by Ozone, but his government name is Othal Wallace. And Othal Wallace was just recently sentenced to 30 years in prison for killing a police officer by the name of Officer Jason Rayner down in Daytona Beach, Florida. The incident happened back in 2021, and I'm going to play the very short body cam video clip that was released. And he was claiming self-defense. And I have never in my life heard of a suspect being charged with killing a police officer, getting away with killing the police officer for self-defense. And this case was no different. I don't know why he did it. His case was just dead on arrival, in my opinion. There were some fellow officers who were, colleagues of Jason Rayner who wanted him to get the death penalty, but he didn't get the death penalty. He got 30 years in prison. So I'm going to go ahead and play the couple of news clips and the body cam footage and get back to my commentary and explain why you can't kill a cop in the United States of America, an on-duty cop, and claim self-defense. Not going to happen.
Taking the stand in his own defense.
There was nothing else I could do. I was backed in the corner. I tried to leave.
The man accused of gunning down a Daytona Beach police officer says it was all in self-defense.
In my perception, I felt that this was the only option I have after I had tried everything else.
Othal Wallace says he was scared for his life and had no other choice when he opened fire.
You testified earlier that you had no other choice but to kill Officer Rayner, right?
And after everything else I had tried, that had become the only option that seemed to be.
How's it going? Do you live here?
What's going on?
Sit down. Sit.
Sir.
Can you sit down? I'll talk to you.
Okay,
Stop.
come on now.
Sit.
Come on now.
Sit.
Don't do this.
Sit down.
Why are you asking me, do
Sit
I
down.
live here?
Do you live here? Yes or no?
What's going on, though? Who?
Charlie 777.
Nah, back up.
Stop.
Man.
Stop. Stop. Stop, man.
So as you can see in that very brief 25-second clip or so, Othal Wallace did a lot of things wrong. Prior to the officer approaching Mr. Wallace, there was a BOLO, which is a law enforcement acronym, which stands for Be on the Lookout. He was actually at the apartment complex where the mother of two of his kids live. I guess one of his baby moms. I don't know how many kids Othal Wallace has total, but in the article, it said that she has at least two of his kids. And they say that he may have been in a stolen car. There's no evidence that the car he was in was stolen or not at the time. And when the officer approached him, he said, "Do you live here?" And one of the critical mistakes that Othal Wallace made was he actually got out of the car and was acting a little bit jittery. And when you get, approached by a police officer, they usually will have you stay in the car and ask you a few questions and ask you to ID yourself. And unfortunately, everything happened so fast, and the officer put his hand on Othal Wallace's shoulder. He was trying to get him to kind of back up and calm down, and Othal Wallace reached for his pistol and fired it at the officer, shot him in the head. They did take him to the hospital. Before they got to the hospital, another officer pulled up, a female officer named Officer Dickens. The mother of Othal Wallace's children brought out a towel, and they used the towel as a tourniquet to kind of help put pressure on the gunshot wound. Part of his left eye was hanging out after he shot the officer in the head, and he was taken to the nearby hospital where they performed surgery to remove the bullet and tried to alleviate the bleeding. And they tried to save him, but I think a few weeks later in the hospital, Officer Rayner died as a result of his injuries. Yeah, I think it was a few weeks. I don't know how many weeks it was, but Officer Rayner did not make it. And one of the critical things that Othal Wallace did wrong was he did not listen to any of the officers' commands. I know a lot of people like, oh, the police be killing black men, nah. But in reality, most of the time, if you just comply with the officers' demands, you're gonna go home. Or you might go to jail if they got a reason to take you to jail, like if you have a warrant or if you do something to get handcuffs put on you. But like the old saying goes, I would rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Live to fight your battle in court. If the officer wrong, if you feel that you shouldn't go to jail or whatever the case may be, just let the judge and the jury fight it out. Now, Othal Wallace gets convicted of manslaughter, and now he's about to spend the next 30 years of his life in prison. And not to throw dirt on his name, but he was a criminal. He had, I think, at least 15 different encounters with the police since 2012. This incident happened in 2021. So in 9 years, he had 15 prior arrests. Now, I don't know if he was a convicted felon or not, but they knew who he was in the Daytona Beach area, which is Volusia County, Florida. It's for those of y'all that are familiar with Florida, it's about an hour and a half or so south of Jacksonville. I have a lot of family in Florida, so I know that entire state very well. But I'm going to play one more video clip of the Volusia County law enforcement. I think he's the police chief for Daytona, or either a sheriff for Volusia County. It's a black man, and he gave a press conference describing the apprehension of Othal Wallace. He was actually up here in the state of Georgia, hiding out in a treehouse, which was on a property near Stone Mountain, Georgia, which is to the east of Atlanta, a suburb to the east. And that area was that particular plot of land, whatever, was associated with this group called NFAC, Not Effing Around Coalition. Some of y'all may have heard of them. They are no longer a legitimate organization, but they were headed by a guy by the name of Grandmaster Jay, I believe. We'll get into him in a little bit. I strongly believe that Othal Wallace's association with Grandmaster Jay influenced him to act the way he acted that day. I don't think that you can blame Grandmaster Jay and NFAC, but they definitely didn't make Othal Wallace a better citizen. So I'm going to play this one more clip.
And I'm thrilled to announce that this search warrant has resulted in the arrest of Othal Wallace.
It turns out police look to have been accurate earlier this week when telling us investigators believed Wallace could be in the Atlanta area. At 2:30 this morning, the chief says it was in a neighboring Georgia county where the FBI, U.S. Marshals, Homeland Security, and Georgia law enforcement finally found the fugitive hiding in a treehouse. Chief Jakari Young says in that treehouse, Wallace had handguns and rifles with boxes of ammo, flash grenades, and body armor.
The property is affiliated with an organization called they call themselves the Not Effing Around Coalition, or just simply known as the NFAC, which is a black nationalist paramilitary organization.
Police say 4 other people were found on the property, and they tracked Wallace there based on surveillance and technology.
What's going on? Sit down. Sit.
It was body camera video Wednesday night. Police say captured Wallace shooting Officer Jason Rayner in the head, as Rayner, according to the chief, confronted Wallace in the Kingston Avenue parking lot because he thought his car looked suspicious. After Wallace drove off, the reward for information leading to his capture reached $200,000.
We were flooded with tips around the clock. They didn't stop.
And when Officer Rayner's own handcuffs were placed on Wallace, Chief Young says Wallace said this.
What he said was, you guys know who I am, you know what I'm capable of, and it could have been a lot worse. That was his statement.
Chief Young says Wallace will be extradited to Daytona Beach, and he will face a charge of first-degree attempted murder on a police officer. In Daytona Beach, Volusia County, I'm James Sparvero, getting Results News 6.
Okay, so there you have it. He was extradited back to the state of Florida after he was apprehended in Georgia, hiding out in a treehouse with multiple weapons. The award for capturing him was up to $200,000, so they really wanted this guy. And I'm gonna touch on Grandmaster Jay. I think that's his name. He's a goofball, if you ask me. I studied the In Fact movement. They made a little bit of noise during 2020. They showed up to Kentucky to show a show of force and unity and protest over the Breonna Taylor killing by the Louisville Police Department. I'm going to do a Breonna Taylor video, and I'm going to touch on that video, on that case from an angle that nobody's touched on before. I want to start talking about the behaviorism of a lot of these cases that led to the deaths of some of these black people, especially if they were unarmed. But Othal Wallace, very, 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 very bad decisions made that day. You can't shoot a police officer who's on duty in uniform and claim self-defense. And according to the prosecutor in the case that convicted Othal Wallace, Jason Rayner, the officer, was never reaching for his gun. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just going off of what the report says. We know reports can always be fabricated, but the facts are he did shoot that officer. That officer did not pull out a taser. That was all on video. He pulled out the gun first and shot that officer. He claims that the officer was reaching for a gun. But y'all are more than welcome to watch the criminal proceedings. That's all online. Just go on Google and type in Othal Wallace case, and it'll be plenty of videos. You can go to right here on YouTube and just look at all the different videos. I'm not going to play all the videos because it's a little bit too much for me to do tonight. I'm about to go to bed. But I just wanted to touch on Grandmaster Jay real quick. He was the now defunct leader of NFAC.
First rank, take 2 steps forward.
This is the NFAC. Armed, aggrieved, and increasingly visible.
Y'all know what our rules of engagement are, right? We don't point our weapons at nobody unless they point them at you.
In an America where racial tension is raging. The group is exclusively black. And Grandmaster Jay is the closely guarded, enigmatic leader. He's agreed to speak with us from what he calls a safe house. The group says that it's not made up of protesters or demonstrators, that it is a black militia. And we're about to meet the leader, Grandmaster Jay. He's told us to come to a secluded location where he hopes we won't be seen.
One of my jobs is to protect the identity of our members. That is why I am the only one that speaks for the NFAC. You have folks that are veterans, that are corporate execs, that are members that don't want to have to deal in their personal life with the pressures of being a part of this organization. We're going to prove to the world that we can be just as organized, just as disciplined, just as well armed, just as determined as any standing military of any government, not as some mob in the streets that gets together on the weekends to call themselves patriots.
So there you have it. That's Grandmaster Jay. He's, I don't know if he's still incarcerated or not, but he was actually charged on federal charges because he allegedly pointed a rifle at a federal officer because they were at the, Breonna Taylor protests up in Louisville, Kentucky back in 2020 when all the Black Lives Matter stuff was going on. And he had his NFAC members marching with him. They had their rifles out. And I'm 100% okay with having a black militia. I don't mind a black militia. I just don't think he was the right leader. He's too flamboyant. He runs his mouth too much. Like the old saying goes, real G's, real bosses move in silence. Have your militia, but man, all this getting on social media, running your mouth, showing off, trying to taunt people, and he just was a little bit too extra for my taste. And a lot of other black men like myself who are more, logical and rational thinking and not all flashy and flamboyant, took the same position that I took. And like I said, the Breonna Taylor situation, it brought a lot of national attention to Louisville, Kentucky. And like I said, I don't mind them being there to support, you know, getting justice for her unfortunate demise. But moral of the story, Othal Wallace, you know, he was affiliated with NFAC. He had some very anti-cop rhetoric on his Instagram. They used that against him in his case. He said something about pig's blood. He wanted, I don't want to misquote him, but just go on the internet and look it up. He said something about pig's blood, and you know, we know that pig is usually a epithet against police officers. So young brothers, shooting a cop, you're not gonna get off, especially if it's an on-duty cop. Now, if it's an off-duty cop and y'all get into an altercation at a bar or something, that's something totally different. But be a responsible gun owner. Do not pull your weapon out unless your life is truly in danger. And usually cops don't just kill people for no reason. I don't believe that officer was going to kill Othal Wallace that day. I just don't believe it. I believe he wanted to pull up on him, ask him what was going on. That apartment complex he was at was known for criminal activity. I don't know the name of the apartment complex, but that's where one of his baby moms was staying at. He was in his car smoking a cigar. They said they thought it could be marijuana, but they found no marijuana in the car. So whether he was smoking marijuana or not, he in the car chilling, doing his thing. And when the officer walks up on him, you know, the officer gives him very detailed instructions to chill out. You know, hold up. You know, he want to put his hands on Othal Wallace to try to calm him down. Othal Wallace got aggressive and he shot him. And now he's finna spend the next 30 years of his life in prison, away from his kids. The officer's dead. Nobody's winning in this situation. There's more young black children growing up without their father. I don't know what kind of father he was, but he's certainly not going to be able to be a father from the inside of a Florida prison cell. So anyway, that's the end of the video. Y'all like, y'all share, y'all subscribe, comment, peace.